Hello, everyone. This is Pete Wormter with Symbl. Thank you for joining our webinar on eliminating after-call work with generative AI. We'll be getting started very shortly. We'll just allow a minute for some additional attendees to come on board. So please stand by, and we'll get started in just a minute or two. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got a good turnout on the webinar. Thank you all again for joining us. We're happy to get together with you today and talk a bit about how we can eliminate after-call work using generative AI in the contact center. So before we do some quick intros, I want to talk a little bit about our agenda. We'll start out with really talking about how AI is really disrupting the call center and the contact center today. We've seen some advancements, and we really think after call work is the next frontier, and we're excited to talk about that. There's huge efficiency opportunities and productivity opportunities you can achieve when it comes to after call work. So yeah, we're excited to talk about that. We'll do a quick demo, and we will open it up for questions at the end of the session, both across the technical aspects as well as the business and ROI type aspects of doing this. So that's the program. We're going to kick it off here with some introductions. So we are happy to have Louisa, Aaron, and Dan on board. So Louisa from Vonage, why don't I start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move around the table here.
Well, thank you very much. So hi, everyone. I'm Louisa Onnebrink. I am part of the Vonage team. My role as a product education manager really allows me to try and turn everyone that I meet and get to talk to, hopefully, into conversational AI enthusiasts. And I'm really excited to be here with the other guys here on the call and show you guys a little bit about the conversational AI aspect when it comes to post-call optimization.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Louisa. Okay, let's hand it over to WebRTC Ventures. Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself and WebRTC Ventures.
Sure. I'm Aaron Syme, CEO and founder at WebRTC Ventures. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So at WebRTC Ventures, we're a custom design and development agency specialized in building live video applications, communication applications in general, more broadly. So you can think of us as the system integrator. We'll take the powerful APIs from Vonage and Symbl.ai, put those together into a custom designed and built application for you, or work side by side with your team to do the same. And so excited to show a short demo of what's possible with that today.
Very good. Thanks for that, Aaron. Great to have you here. Let's move it on over to Dan. Tell us a little about yourself, Dan.
Fantastic. Thanks, Pete. So I'm Dan Nordale. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of Symbl. Symbl.ai is a AI platform, initially sort of very targeted at developers, making it very easy to surface insights out of conversations. Really, our mission is to lift performance for humans in business conversations, which ties in really well to our topic today. Great, very excited for this session with Louisa and Aaron, and for our partnership with Vonage and WebRTC Ventures. Excited to show some of the tremendous potential of this partnership.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, thank you for that, Dan. I will also let you know that we are happy to take questions throughout the session here. We can monitor the chat and chime in, so don't hesitate to pop a question into the chat window, and we'll be sure we get through them certainly before the end of the session. So let's move on a little bit. I mean, to talk about AI at, let's say, a bit of a higher level, and there's no doubt that it's been having a huge impact on the contact center, the way we run contact centers, both from an agent perspective and improving the experience and engagement, but of course, how it's really enabled us to make some transformational changes in the way we deliver customer experience. So very exciting times, lots going on. When we look at a little bit of kind of the, let's say, evolution or innovations that have come to the contact center with AI, we're all pretty familiar with bots these days, and they've really become commonplace and ubiquitous in contact centers, and delivering real value. So we're not going to talk about bots today. There's also agent assist apps, which are really up and coming and on the rise. We could actually talk quite a bit about agent assist, and maybe that's something we can cover in another session. At Symbl, we're doing some exciting things there, and we see some huge potential around real-time agent assist. But today, specifically, we're going to talk about automated after-call work, and really, we think the huge impact you can have on really perhaps the most critical part of the customer journey, part of the agent's work, and that's really what happens after the call. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, how that's changed. I will bring in the other speakers as well, and we'll get the discussion going here. So let's look at, why in particular for this session, but in general, why we've zeroed in on after call work. And it's not a new problem. I think it's been a challenge as long as there have been contact centers, and as long as, we've been trying to effectively manage cost and manage our agents in the contact center. After call work, or ACW, is a huge part of that. Maybe I'll tick a couple stats on the right here before we jump in, but there's no question that the amount of after call work has increased, according to Forrester, 20% in the last decade or so. And you can just think about all the various systems that have come into play, managing additional channels, all the additional work that agents do today has certainly had an impact and increase on the amount of after call work. And, in terms of percentage of time, it's, ICMI stat here, 25% or a quarter of the workload of the agent actually happens after the call. So again, not a new problem, one becoming more complex, I think, and more layers to it. So maybe, Dan, it's a good way to segue over to you and talk, beyond the increases, what other issues and challenges are you seeing out there when you talk to customers?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. It's really interesting that in this amazing time that we live in, where we're all experiencing the potential of generative AI, that we're today talking about what we might think is maybe the least interesting part of the customer journey. And in fact, the customer oftentimes isn't involved in this part of the journey, but it's in recording what occurred when our people, our agents are serving customers when they need us the most. Most of the potential of AI, the power of AI, has been employed around the digital transformation that customers have been, the organizations have been executing on over a number of years. And I think Louisa will touch on this more in terms of the potential, but what's going on, the ability for organizations to effectively execute in this documenting and understanding what went on in the service of customers actually has a lot of, it's critical in feeding back that sort of important information into better automation. But the improved automation, Pete, that you talked about, I think is really feeding some of the statistics that that are shown on the slide here. 20% increase in after call work. I think we all know why that is. The simple things that customers need we are as an industry ticking those off and automating those, and what's left in these all important human to human conversations are more complex, more impactful interactions, recording those, executing really well, and ensuring that we understood what happens on the call has massive potential in terms of ROI efficiency, which we'll go into more, but in terms of just completing the record of how we're serving customers becomes really important. The problem that we all know exists in the contact center is agents are busy. Agents are asked to do many things. It's a very hard job. And so the more that we can take off their plate, the more they can actively engage in the conversation, we're going to get a better outcome. And then obviously from a data perspective, if we can accurately record what occurred on the call, why did the call, what was the customer need, and how did we satisfy that need, ultimately that's going to improve the overall system as well. So the key points here are consistency and accuracy. And this is where generative AI really plays a huge role. Is we don't need the agent to record what happened on the call in the same way we have in the past. We actually can generate that insight predictably, reliably for the agent, allow them to engage, and just put them in a QA step on that. Here's what we believe happened in the call, both in terms of a summary, action items, follow-up items, all the things that we want recorded out of an interaction can be generated automatically. Maybe there's some slight edits, maybe not. Ultimately, the agent didn't have to focus on that. They could focus on the customer. And we now have a really, a much more, again, consistent, accurate record of that entire customer journey. That's really the potential here.
Yeah. And I totally agree, Dan. And I think even you can kind of connect the dots as well to, agent engagement and even, it's all about improving the customer experience. So having that accurate record, understanding really what needs to happen next in a very personalized and specific way, obviously also has huge dividends on the experience you deliver. So maybe I'd love to pivot over maybe to Aaron, if you want to provide a little perspective on what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, I think
challenges.
I think there's so much opportunity with this. And to me, what Dan's comments made me think about too is in building video applications for our clients over the last 7 or 8 years, a number of years ago, we would have talked about like, well, do you want to record all these calls so that you have the record, the video and the audio of a conversation with customer? And that capability has existed in like the Vonage APIs and in video chat in general for a while. But I would often think about with our clients but are you actually going to go back and watch all those recordings, right? You may have a tremendous amount of recordings of customer conversations, and what are you actually going to do with that? Even if you know this particular call was a problematic call, and so you want to review the agent's performance in the call, for example, you still have to kind of go watch the whole call. And to me, that's part of the power and the efficiency of the generative AI here for the agent as well as the organization after the call, is that now you've got a transcript of those calls. So you could still take the recording and archive them, but you don't have to go and watch them. You can go to the transcripts, and you've got sentiment analysis around the conversation as well. So you can look at where was a call that the customer sentiment was particularly negative, or it trended in the wrong direction over the course of the call, and now just go back to that specific recording or even that portion of the recording because you know the time that it happened within that call. And so that sort of thing, I think, is really interesting and powerful to me, of how we can use this to increase the efficiency of the agent and the overall organization and their customer experience.
Pete, there's a question that came in around this balance. It's this blend between, as you set up, the agent assist and this after call work. How do we use AI and insights to improve agent performance? And I think those really are two separate things. And I think the question Chris Peterson asked, which is a good one, is should we be distracting agents in the moment? And I think that is an unsolved equation, or it's in the process of being solved, in terms of what insights do you want to lift to someone in real time. And I think Aaron's going to get into this a bit more, but most of the focus here today is about, yes, it's in real time, we're listening, but really most of the work here is after the conversation's over with a customer, and it's just assisting that agent to be more efficient, but really focus on the conversation. And so in many respects, what we're talking about here is less distraction to the agent, because they can focus on the conversation as opposed to completing the record as they're having the conversation.
Yeah, taking notes. Yeah, very good point. Thanks for answering that, Dan. And I think it's a good segue if we're ready to move on to the next slide here. But yeah, look, so how do you change it? What can we actually achieve now using generative AI, using cloud communications and so forth? And I would say there's huge gains to be had. There's an example on the right. We won't walk through that, but upwards of approaching 20% improvement gains. So, maybe Dan, I'll kick things off with you again, but give us a little taste before we head into the demo of how you can really achieve this, and maybe a little bit of what, the AI and what we're doing behind the scenes to make this happen.
Yeah, that sounds good. I would say, before we jumped into the specifics, I think that investment in the customer experience in general, we as an industry have matured so much. I think that even a short while ago, 5 years ago, while there's a lot of talk about customer experience and that's really the primary measures, when you dig under the covers, the reality is we're measuring leaders based on lower level metrics, many of which relate to cost of service. And I think as an industry, we've matured. And so there's always this balance. Really, the reason we invest, I say we as an industry, reason we invest in customer experience is to lift that experience and differentiate the company in terms of the experience we deliver to customers. Of course, as we invest in that improvement experience, there has to be an ROI. And this is a perfect case. We talked about what the benefits are. I won't repeat that. To keep your agents focused on the customer, to remove the tasks and the part of the job that agents probably least enjoy. Those are huge. Those are the reasons you would invest. Oh, by the way, there's a phenomenal ROI here, and we don't need to walk through it. It's pretty intuitive. Anytime you shave off the handle time of a call, increases capacity of the contact center. that drops a return. Again, that might be a 15% gain, it might be a 20% gain. It really depends on everyone's situation. But I think this focus here has benefits across, as we talked about, experience, but it also it certainly has huge potential to save cost, increase capacity.
Pete, I think you're muted.
My apologies. Yeah, just would maybe put it out to Louisa or Aaron if you have additional comments as we move ahead here.
Well, I'm curious to hear a little bit from Louisa, because we're going to, if she wants to hint at the role of virtual agents in this, because the demo that we'll show in a moment is really about the in-call conversation itself between a live agent, a human agent, and the customer. And so we're kind of demoing that portion of it, but there is a lot of work that may lead up to that. And I see we have a question in the chat too about how do you handle that so that the customer is not feeling inhibited to talk with you if they know that they're talking with a bot at that point, or they're going to be recorded when they're talking with the live agent.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I mean, as you guys hinted so brilliantly already at the ROI and benefits of having post-call information enabled and the generative AI to really get the insights out of it. I think the insights from a conversational AI perspective are, I think, just as important to be able to fully understand what our customers want from the business. And of course, us building many virtual agents every day, we learn firsthand really how important it is to really get to know our customers and learn from the human to human experience. I imagine this, and I see it on the day-to-day as this giant feedback loop, right? We have the virtual agent that needs to communicate in a very professional manner, an efficient manner with the customer and the end user on the other end. But how can we really build these kind of experiences and optimize and automate those processes and drive that efficiency for a business if we haven't learned from the human to human connection beforehand? So what I'm saying is that learning from how the conversations from human to human work is absolutely crucial to create this efficiency layer prior to the conversation, where we're always saying we want to hand off the redundant and repetitive queries, the things that are very easily automated, hand those over to the virtual agent. Perfect, let's do this. However, let's also make sure that we're doing this in the best possible way. And for that, we are dependent on building conversations that customers can relate to, that customers feel engaged with, that customers feel at home in. Like you said earlier, how do the customers really feel confident and comfortable, of course, talking to a virtual agent? And I think key here really is to put ourselves in their shoes and understand how this conversation really should work to make everyone get the resolution in the quickest time possible. Use the tone, for example, that has been based on the solution that you're going to show in a bit. The tone, the creatives, the responses, just the whole way of dealing with the customers, that the information that we're getting out, the insights, and utilize them to actually improve the solution and create the solution with the virtual agent, right? And the feedback loop I mentioned, imagine this: we have the human-to-human connection. We're learning from them to create the virtual agent. In turn, in the conversation with the virtual agent, we're learning certain things about the customer, right? We're learning certain little things that they might ask additionally. That again goes back, of course, sometimes, we have the elegant fallbacks, we have failures that all can happen, or, we're handing over to a human because this is a very VIP kind of use case, right? So in those cases, we're again learning from what happened, what failed in the bot-human connection, and then the agents can weigh in, and we can learn from their connection with the user after, what can we improve in the bot experience? I think this is really, really important. Maybe later we can dive into this a bit deeper. But I think at this point, I'm just going to hand it back to you guys to show really live how this works.
No, that's great, Louisa. Thanks very much for that perspective. We'll definitely dig into that a bit deeper following the demo. So that's not the last you've heard of that, but many thanks.
We did have a question just to clarify. ACW, oh, yeah, we're good with the acronyms, right? We confuse everyone when we abbreviate. So ACW, after call work, often called wrap. It's to think about it in, if we think about handle time is, you know, whereas we're talking to agents is the sort of big, or sorry, as agents talking to customers, that's the big bulk of that. Then there's this piece of now once the call hangs up, there's a chunk of work, chunk of time before that agent is prepared or ready to make themselves ready to take on another interaction. So that after call work or wrap, that's really what we're talking about. It's that period of time. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for clarifying that, Dan. Look, we're going to jump into the demo quickly, everyone, but we wanted to give you a little taste of some of the outputs here. So again, right after the call, you'll get delivered with a summary, next steps. You can get a readout on sentiment and even you know, process and potential ways to improve. So very cool stuff. Again, we kind of hammer in, it's all about consistency and accuracy and you know, ensuring that to really generate the best outcomes here. So having said that, Aaron, I'm going to hand it over to you for the demo and take it away.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Pete. So we have just a short, about 2-minute video that we'll show you. That's a walkthrough, and we'll talk a little bit more about it afterwards, but I want to give you a quick preview of what you're going to see in that video. So this is the agent's view of a customer video call. So your interaction with the customer in this case is video. We're using the Vonage video API. Of course, it could be an audio only conversation as well, or a telephone conversation. In this case, we're using video. And then this is kind of an example, quick dashboard of what the agent might see. So things that you'll see in this around the real-time transcript and sentiment analysis. To be clear, these are things typically you're only going to show the agent. So they're not a distraction to the end customer, but they're also not a distraction to the agent because they're, you know, this is doing the work for them so that they don't have to do it during the call. And then after the call, a summary, and there's a number of things you could do. In this case, we showed a listing of what were the questions that were asked during the call, and then the final transcript as well. And also want to point out in this demo video, so the larger video that you're seeing here in the screenshot is our CTO at WebRTC Ventures, Alberto, and the smaller video is one of our developers, Fahad. Neither of them is a professional actor in any way, so keep that in mind with the demo here. But it is a cool, quick example of what you could do with pulling together these different communications APIs from Vonage and then the AI APIs from Symbl. And so just very quickly, what you'll see, the pieces of those systems in here from the Vonage side, we're primarily demonstrating the video API for a call. Like I said, it could also be voice as well. And then you might notice in our summary screen, we have a place where you could send a text message to the customer. We're not really demoing that in here, but just an example of the multimodal capabilities that you have with the Vonage communication APIs if you wanted to send a text message follow-up to the customer of the updated flight information. The demo we're going to show is kind of a customer getting help from an airline with their flight type of use case. And then on the Symbl side, we're primarily demonstrating their streaming API and conversation intelligence API, which gives us access to the real-time transcript during the call, final transcript as well as sentiment analysis throughout and after the call, and pulling out key information, which in this case we're showing questions that were asked, but could be additional information as well. And then again, our role as WebRTC Ventures is basically to build the application that pulls these together. In this demo, we're showing a application that's based on a React and Node.js stack using a Next.js framework. But to be clear, this could be any web or mobile framework. It's not restricted to that at all. So without any further ado, let's get to Alberto and Fahad doing their demo for us.
Hello. I would like to cancel and reschedule my flight, please.
Hi, I will be happy to assist you with that. May I have your booking reference number, please?
Sure. The booking reference number is ABC123, and the name on the reservation is Fahad.
Thank you. Let me pull up your reservation. Okay, I have that. Can you please let me know the reason for the cancellation and rescheduling?
Yes, I have a personal emergency that came up, and I need to reschedule for a later date.
I'm sorry to hear that. We'll do our best to accommodate your needs. Can you please tell me the dates you would like to reschedule for?
Yeah, sure. I would like to reschedule for next week on the 8th of February.
Okay, let me check the availability. Yes, we have a flight on that day. Would you like to reschedule for the same route and class of service?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, I have rescheduled your flight for the 8th of Feb. Is there anything else I can help you?
No, that's all. Thank you for your assistance.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Yep. Bye.
Okay, so there's a quick walkthrough there. Again, what we're doing here is taking the Web Audio API from that conversation, forwarding that to Symbl.ai. Symbl gives us back those results about the transcript in JSON format and in almost real time. And there's also an isFinal parameter that they let us know about that in that response that lets us know when the caption is final. So we're showing things as we get them in this, even if this final's not quite there, but you can add that in as well, and then see the final transcript as the end, so things can get updated over time. Yeah, really both of the APIs here are quite simple to use, really easy to use APIs, great documentation and demos that they each have for them. And then our team has a lot of experience with building WebRTC and video applications in general and using these APIs. So we'll pull them together into something like this. This is what you're seeing now on the screen is just a screenshot of that summary, what the agent would see after the call. So this is where you get to see those benefits of the after call work. So on the top right, we have a quick summary given to us by Symbl of what happened in this conversation, of what was discussed. And in this case, we're just displaying that, but you could imagine that this might be put into a field where the agent can edit it if they need to. We're pulling out the queries, the questions that the customer asked, and we could also pull out other information like perhaps flight numbers that were discussed, things along those lines that we're going to use. And then we've got the final updated transcript here in the bottom right, along with sentiment of the customer shown as we go through that. And then you're also seeing in the top left of the screen a graph of the conversation over time separated by the customer and the agent. So you are seeing the sentiment for both parties there, and you can see that over time. And in this case, you can see that the customer starts out primarily red and then goes to green by the end, which is of course the transition we'd want to see in any good customer interaction, that we've satisfied their concerns. The flight got rescheduled and everybody's happy, right? And then, again, this is a pretty quick demo of pulling those together, but there's a lot of other follow-up actions and things that we might build into this dashboard, pulling up typical actions for after the call or saving it, obviously saving those transcript notes, saving any key information that we've pulled out of those, maybe sending a follow-up text message to the customer with their confirmation or their email along those lines. So that's a quick demonstration of using those APIs together.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, Aaron. Very cool. Lots of stuff going on there, so you can really see how you can reduce the workload and quite significantly, frankly, as well as gathering and generating that additional intelligence post call. So I think that's maybe a good segue into our next section here, and digging into
actually,
a
Pete,
little.
Sorry, Pete.
Sure.
Before we move on, there's a question here that Aaron should handle. I think relevant to this screen. So there's a question. This is for a video call. Is it relevant for a voice call as well? So Aaron.
Yeah, great question, and thanks for pointing that out, Dan. The question is the video or audio, completely the same experience from Symbl's perspective. What we're doing is we're taking the audio from this video call and sending that on to Symbl. And so what we've shown you on this dashboard, it could have been a video call, it could have been a telephone call, or an audio chat through the browser. Any of those modes of communication would have been fine for generating the same exact information that we were showing here.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, thank you for that, Aaron. So let's talk a little bit, more. I'm gonna bring it over to Louisa to maybe talk a little bit more, again, digging down on post-call, maybe in terms of design and building, and what's really possible in terms of maybe optimization and personalization. So Louisa, I'll hand it over to you.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. So I think it was very clear in the demonstration what kind of key information pieces I, as a conversation designer, and my colleagues would pull out of that call, of that video communication between those two, right? It was first and foremost, of course, I would want to know what was inquired about, what were the main questions, were they all able to be handled in a sufficient and efficient, of course, manner, and of course also the tone. Was it something that was relatable? Is it something that we saw how it was highlighted when we came to a close, and how did we come to a close? So just to mention those two parameters that I would look at now and say, maybe I need to tweak here the experience of my virtual agent prior a little more based on what I learned, right? And in general, really, as a conversation designer, or basically, any developer creating their conversation experiences, I would double down on a few aspects. And I think first and foremost, what I would look at when I'm getting the information that was just shown to us would, of course, be, customer pain points. Anything that was mentioned there that was not being able to be handled in the virtual agent, I would note that down and make sure that the flow, if this comes up more than once and is something that is very often inquired about, I would make sure I would plug this into the virtual agent right at the forefront, so I can make sure that whoever is the live agent on the other end doesn't have to, if this is a very easy to automate query, right, doesn't have to handle this and spend their time on. Time is money, and it makes more than sense to have certain queries automated by a virtual agent. As I said earlier, the second thing I would look at all times would be tone, creative, and the voice. How was it phrased? Were there specific colloquial expressions that were very easy to relate to? As I said, in the closing remarks, is this something that I can adapt to? Maybe I need to phrase certain things like, is there anything else I can help you with? I think from a conversation design perspective, it is an absolute must to keep the conversation as open and flexible as possible. And I think this was very nicely demonstrated with questions like, how can I help you? Do you need anything else? Things like that, instead of just coming to a close. I think another really important part is learning how to optimize the voice or chatbot responses. Is there something that, for example, the user would come in and has a query, and the response giving by the bot is something that the conversation designer or the business was very clear and very precise on. However, the user didn't understand and is ultimately transferred to a human, right? Because we never want to keep anyone in a loop. So the human on the other end, the representative, does an incredible job of explaining it slightly different to the response that we have programmed in the virtual agent. Those are the kind of data pieces that we can extract and have to extract and look out for when we're getting those kind of post-call insights. Because of course we need to always compare the efficiency of both here, of virtual agent versus human, and make sure we're learning from each, and again, rounding it up in the feedback loop. And I think something that we often overlook is the aspect of personalization. Personalization is, I think, in this day and age, even more common, right? We talked earlier about the pain points, having to be reachable 24/7, having to have more knowledge about your customers than ever. And I think adding the aspect of personalization quite often really is what keeps the customers with a business, what keeps them recommending the business, what keeps them excited and wanting to come back, because they know, okay, this business makes an effort, makes the one step that I don't see from others in getting to know me. It can be greeting, it can be an outbound message saying, hey, Aaron, you really liked the blue shoes yesterday, right? We talked about it. Now they're on sale. Things like this, I think, are super, super important, making sure that everyone feels like they're getting something out of it. Instead of them having to contact us, why don't we come to them with the information? And those, again, are key pieces we can learn from post-call insights, like shown before. And I think really just to kind of like conclude this, I think whenever you are trying to automate flows in your business and adding a virtual agent to it, doesn't matter if this is on a text channel or a voice channel, having the extra element of post-call insights is really the cherry on the ice cream that makes the experience, I think, as seamless, as efficient, and yeah, ultimately as amazing as it has to be for the expectations of today's customer. And I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to the guys.
Hey, Pete, I just got one ad there.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like cherry on their ice cream, right? I mean, really.
Right.
But no, just I think we've talked a lot about, and I think Aaron's screen showed it well, but just this concept of we're talking about taking audio and providing a set of structured data that represents the call. And so what Louise is talking about is sort of spot on. Is it's not about just a summary of the call. It's about the specific questions that were asked. It's the specific need that the customer brought. That's structured as a specific insight. That data set will feed improved automated experiences in the future, for sure. So it's not just one thing. It's a series of artifacts that are produced in a structured way that feed this loop that Louise was referring to.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Dan. We did get a couple questions from Marcelo. Is integration with Symbl any risk for HIPAA compliance? We'll right back to you on that one, Dan.
Yeah, sure. I think great question, because I think integrating to services that are consuming audio from your platforms, you should be concerned. We know that, and we maintain the highest sort of certification standards, PCI, SOC 2, HIPAA compliant, for sure, GDPR compliant. So the ability to recognize sensitive data and be able to sort of immediately redact it is sort of pretty foundational to what we do and to maintain the security of data. Excellent. I saw another question around foreign language support, and certainly the answer is yes. We support a huge variety of languages. It's never all of them, but it's most. I think the number's 30 languages, and so we support most of the major European, English, Spanish, Mandarin, the major languages that you would expect.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for that, Dan. We're going to jump in and leave a little extra time for additional questions, but maybe we'll finish out here with, additional things you can think about in the future. Luisa, I'll start with you. We can do a bit of a roundtable on this one.
Right, brilliant. Okay, so I think from a Vonage perspective, what would be very interesting at all times, of course, is to add, to utilize the conversational AI builder that we have called AI Studio, where virtually anyone can create very intuitively, very easy, their conversational flows. And of course, I have to say this like this because I'm not a developer myself, and I can create very nice and easy and even reliable flows, right? These days with GPT, I think we all got the buzz and the scare out of it. But to be fair, I think it is a very, very important tool to have in your repertoire these days as a contact center, as a business. And I think this is where I would like to hand it over to you.
Yeah, so I'll take from there and talk about some additional things that we might want to build into an integration like this. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're really like a system integration partner to these APIs. We don't sell a product. We are selling our services and our expertise in building applications like this. And to the question that was asked by a viewer earlier about things like HIPAA compliance, for example, that's something that we'd really want to think about building into the application overall, because as I'm sure the viewer knows, is when you're building something to be HIPAA compliant, you need each piece of it to be HIPAA compliant, those third-party services that you use, but also major area of risk is how you integrate those together, how you use them together. And so that's really where our expertise comes in. And so that kind of fits into this idea of, how are you going to integrate these different services into your unique contact center workflow with a combination of off-the-shelf tooling that you may have, or custom tooling, custom dashboards that you want to build that pull everything together from behind the scenes, so that you're not only just, taking a transcript in real time and pulling out key information from that, but how do we do that in a way that really reduces that after call work for the agent, so that they're on a single screen doing everything they need to do for this conversation, and that the code behind that screen is what's pushing it out to the different systems, right? They're not pulling up 5 different tools. And it's great if Symbl.ai pulls out some key information for them, right? But if they have to then cut and paste that, bring it over to another window, drop it there, save there, all that sort of stuff, right? You could have a lot of inefficiencies in your system and create additional burden on your agents. So really the way to pull all of this together with a strong UX for the agent as well as the customer is really important. And that's something that really where most of the work is going to be in a custom integration with us, because the APIs themselves are well documented and easy to work with. It's all about the integration of that within your workflow and your security requirements, et cetera. And so, yeah, then there's a lot of other things that you could do too. I think there was also a question that alluded to like sending information on from the conversation to others. So if you wanted to send a notification to managers or other agents around specific topics or around sentiment detected in a call like that to highlight that conversation, all those other sorts of after call actions that might be taking place in the technology behind the scenes, that's something else too that we could be building into this for you.
I'll jump right in, because I just want to kind of get behind what Aaron said there. I hope what people take away from this session is, we have this funny haves and haves nots, or sort of this, we've got the very large organizations who can build highly tailored solutions for their contact center. And then there's this break that happens, and everyone else has to sort of live with off-the-shelf things, which are obviously quite powerful. I think there's a middle ground here that I hope people took away, that it's fairly straightforward and easy to tailor using the power of Vonage, using the power of Symbl to deliver unique experiences for your agents so they can deliver outsized results. And so that's I think in the world we live in today, way more approachable for more businesses than it has in the past. So hopefully that's a clear takeaway. I think from a Symbl perspective, we have just scratched the surface in terms of showing the discrete insights and intelligence that's available in your calls in the contact center, or frankly, the calls that your salespeople are having with prospects. All of those that's a battleground for improved performance where conversation insights can assist. That can assist your people to deliver better result. I think we've scratched the surface. I think scoring calls in the contact center to help people self-coach and improve on the fly is a phenomenal area. I think, again, taking that to the sales conversations is another sort of significant area of value that organizations are pursuing.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Dan. I think we're going to maybe kind of wrap on that note. I know we've got a couple questions in the chat here that we'll cover, and we would open it up if anyone else has additional questions. Please chime in before we do wrap up here. But a couple questions from Peter. So how do we get started with adding this feature to the Vonage application?
I'll get started on that and then hand to Aaron. But I think step one, reach out to your Vonage rep and mention that it's a pretty well-defined WebRTC Ventures is, and Aaron, you can say more, pretty strong partner, important partner for Vonage in the execution of these types of scenarios.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So this is all of this functionality already exists in each API for Vonage and Symbl, but it's pulling them together into your application. So however you have built your application now, then the developers who did that would take the audio streams from Vonage and send those over to the Symbl API and then process the information that comes back. So there is development required. And so whoever built your application could probably do that. That's obviously an area that we at WebRTC Ventures specialize in. So we're happy to come in and help you with that specific integration as well. So we'll do completely custom builds, or we'll work side by side with your team to integrate just specific aspects into your application and make sure that they're done with best practices.
Excellent.
I think that's a good transition to another question, Pete. So I think when you think about integrating these capabilities, typically what we're talking about is integrating the capabilities, yes, into the Vonage application that you're using for communication, but typically it's integrating into other systems of record as well, or maybe directly to those systems of record. So it's understanding where, WebRTC Ventures can execute. So we're in the audio stream. We're understanding and structuring the data of that audio, and then where it goes and how it's presented. There's huge amount of options there.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Dan. We've got just a quick question. We mentioned on languages, around 30 or so, all the major languages to answer that question. Any others? I don't know, maybe one more just in terms of time frames and how quickly can we get something like this up and running? Maybe Aaron, I'll kick that one over to you.
Sure. So what we showed you in this demo today is just a week to 2 weeks of work, assuming that you already have the UI designed and ready to go, right? So taking these APIs and connecting them together by itself does not take that much work. So it's a pretty straightforward thing to do. The harder part is really, as like Dan was just talking about, taking that information, what do you do with it? So how are you going to build on what we showed here? Because that's going to be unique to every situation, to the type of customer service that you're doing, to whether it is a customer service situation versus, sales or whatever context that you're working in, right? And storing that information in the system of record, integrating those things together. That's where the bulk of the work is often going to be done. And so that's, to answer that is harder. Have to give the typical consultant answer of it depends. But, it's more like months probably realistically to kind of completely put it into your overall workflow. But these APIs, while they are separate from each other, integrating them together in a scenario like this, that portion is pretty straightforward in a couple of weeks of work.
Awesome. Very cool. I think we got another question regarding help. Peter, absolutely, we can help and provide assistance, so we can connect after the session here. I think we are just coming up on the top of the hour here, so let's wrap. I can't thank you all enough for attending on behalf also of Louisa, Aaron, and Dan, Vonage, WebRTC Ventures, and Symbl. Thank you for being here. We will follow up with all of you, get you the deck and share more information. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out if you want to learn more about this and give it a try. We're here. So thanks again, everyone. And we're going to wrap it up there.
Thanks, Pete.